definitely. So we talked a little bit about some of that medical nutrition therapy curriculum. I would love to know about the curriculum that you went through as a health coach, what kind of nutrition information you learned there, and kind of comparing that to the curriculum you are going through now.
Yeah, it's drastically different. So, I mean, this is based off of my experience. So there are instances where someone can become, excuse me, a board certified health coach. I did briefly look at that, but I was already in the dietetic path that I thought, well, there's no, I mean, because honestly, the program I was looking at was like 10 grand. And I thought, well, that's like a couple of semesters in dietetic school. Like I might as well just go that route instead and not worry about it. So to be fair, I haven't taken any of the board certifying health coaching courses or anything like that. They may be different, but there is no shortage of health coaching certifications out there. Some of them you can get in a weekend. Some of them, you know, maybe a little bit more expensive than others. I've taken a few different ones. Obviously I had the holistic nutrition and weight loss for women. I had NASM's personal fitness training. Also had NASM's sports like nutrition specialist. I forget what they call it. I didn't complete that one because I was already moving on to other things. And then I had some in functional health coaching, hybrid coaching, and things like that. Very few of the programs that I have done. This is one of the big things I have noticed is you're not using your critical thinking skills and using scientific evidence-based like data from studies, research articles to complete your coursework. One of those did have us, you know, when we discussed a certain topic, hey, you know, look at studies, cite your sources, you know, to come up with a conclusion for this, you know, maybe it's a case study answer or something or a question. But when I look at some of these other courses and I've seen, you know, I've talked to other health coaches and the types of courses they're doing, you're almost putting your faith in whoever built that coaching program to give you accurate evidence-based information. And you and I, on a personal note, have talked about, you know, evidence-based versus like anecdotal evidence. And it's like, you know, I'm not too rigid to not say, hey, anecdotal evidence does never matter. But when you are looking at a large population, you have to use evidence-based.
Yes.
I mean, you just have to. And so some of the discrepancies that I have seen, maybe this would be the easiest way to kind of like explain it. Becoming a health coach, when you have a client that comes in and you're looking at their nutrition program, this is what you ask. How old are you? How much do you weigh? How tall are you? Which gender are you? What's your goal? Here's your macros. Eat these foods. Don't eat these foods. Go. Right? Becoming a dietitian, total different ball game. You could ask those questions, but we're also asking like, you know, what prior health conditions do you have? Are you on medications that could have, you know, interactions with certain types of food? Do you have any sensory needs? You know, maybe you have autism spectrum disorder or ADHD. Or OCD, and there's something along that line. What is your cultural food? That's a huge one.
Yes.
Huge one. I've actually worked with a client who has a Cuban culture background, and that was something that she was like, I just can't take another white nutritionist taking away all my foods. And I'm like, I get it.
Yes.
You know, I've worked with clients that are from Mexico and from Germany, and there's just like, their culture matters. Their food matters. So that's something that I feel like we are trained as dietitians to think like your access to food. If you're over here talking about all of these foods that you should never eat, but you're not simultaneously talking about access to the foods that you're telling people to eat, I can't listen to you anymore.
Yes.
You know, that, and what I've learned, and especially, so I live in a very rural southern town, and the town that I actually grew up in, I graduated with 25 kids, I think.
Wow.
Total, right? Me being like number 25, number 24 was a foreign exchange student. So like we were a really small town, no red lights, like super small town. At some point in that town, the local grocery store had burnt down and it wasn't able to be rebuilt. And I could be wrong because I haven't been there in a while, but the last time I was there, your food options were a handful of gas stations and a Dollar General store that made a little bit of produce everything in the frozen section. So when you're telling people non-GMO, organic, and all this other stuff, you're talking to a select few people in the population. Because these people can't get to it. Another thing is like disabilities, you know, like, do you have disabilities that impact the way that you can get food? Eating disorders. Do you have a history of eating disorders? Do you have risks for being, you know, someone who has an eating disorder or disordered eating? That's something that I don't feel like many health coaches are trained or know like how to address. I just feel like in my health coaching experience, there was like, okay, here's these questions, you know, go on. Now the dietitian is like, whoa, like I have so many questions for you and I need to know everything so that I can make a true legitimate assessment to know what your actual needs are. It's not black and white, eat these foods, don't eat these foods, here's your macros, that kind of thing anymore. That is probably one of the biggest things. It's like the way that you're trained to think about your clients and just like the way that you study the information. I mean, there's no reason why it takes now coming up, it's going to take a master's degree, an internship to become a dietitian. I mean, this book alone, I mean, I already showed it. Like, look how huge that thing is. I have like 4 or 5 more of my nutrition books up here on my bookshelf above me. So like,
I'm saying, I think I have mine here too.
Yes. So, you know, it's totally different compared to like read this module, answer these questions, and move on. You know, there was a lot of unlearning for me going into dietetics. Like, for instance, like maybe how I felt about organic foods, how I felt about GMO food or GMO foods, genetically modified foods. And as a student that's becoming a dietitian, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but you essentially have to do pre-med. So you have like a lot of like sciences. I think there's like 7 in total. Most of those are going to be in chemistry, which is like, you know, going to end me one day, I swear. But like organic chemistry, that class broke me. I'm not going to lie, but I would recall talking about, hey, you know, I'm in organic chemistry, or maybe I'm talking about the nuances of the struggle that I'm having with it. And a lot of people are like, why are you taking organic chemistry? Like, how does that relate to it? One of the things that I did in organic chemistry in the lab was we took acids that had a certain scent and we mixed it with other, you know, chemicals. I guess you could, I mean, everything's a chemical. Maybe that's another great reason why you do organic chemistry, because you learn everything is a chemical. But we just mixed some of these acids together in a controlled, sterile environment. Well, maybe not sterile, but a controlled, clean environment, and created a artificial scent to scent a candle. And while that was not an edible, you know, lab experiment, we could have done the exact same thing with flavor acids instead of scented acids. And so getting to actually put my hands on these acids and do them and have like this knowledge and education around how these chemicals like react to each other and things like that, this like artificial, you know, fear around artificial flavorings and food kind of went away. It's like some cool scientist in a lab throwing stuff together and making a banana flavor. That's awesome, you know? Do I think that we probably need like long-term research continue to look at that to make sure that, you know, sure. But I really was just like, this is how it relates to dietetics. Like, this is how and in biochemistry, learning the chemistry of like how glucose is metabolized and stuff like that. It's everything that we do with nutrition. So that was really helpful. There's no way I could have gotten those experiences, that knowledge, that level of understanding of nutrition in any of the courses that I've done before. The courses, I feel like, are very condensed versions, and I think that they do have a role and a place in the nutrition profession, but we really need to make sure that we keep them separate and don't blur the line, because there is a huge drastic difference between health coaching education or nutrition certification and then going to school to become a dietitian. I mean, I could keep going, but like, it's just huge.
Yes.
Different.
I was going to say, and I want to pick up on one of the points that you made talking about, all these different certifications that you can get, and you're kind of just inserting yourself into, the research that somebody else has done, kind of their approach, their protocol, and then the kind of the difference between a dietetics curriculum. So, we talk a lot about what we have to go through as dietitians. We have all the science classes that you mentioned. Very soon next year, everyone will be required to have a master's degree. So we've got an education component. We've got our internship that is, these supervised trained hours. We have to pass a national board exam, and then we've got to get a certain number of continuing education hours every 5 years. Mm-hmm. And something that kind of I was thinking about as you were talking is the programs that we're going through also go through this. And I thought of that because I actually just sat in on a meeting last week for my internship. They are going through their reaccreditation process. And so part of that was the accreditation team sitting down with graduates and kind of asking about our experience and some of the assignments that we did, which I'll be honest, it's been a while since I did it. So some of that was a little bit hazy, but then also, what do we think is the most important thing to include in an internship, things like that. And that's only a small part of what they're going through to become accredited. So it's not just us that have kind of this academic rigor that we have to go through. The programs that we're going through also have to meet certain standards and criteria. And it's not just something that, somebody threw up online one day and said, and not to say that all, programs are like that, because I know there are some that are more rigorous than that. But I do think that is something that's a benefit to our field, is that not only do we have some consistency there as far as the education and training and continuing education that we have, the programs also have that as well. And I think that's, an interesting distinction to make.